Good Tuesday morning. Just to continue the theme, both in the book of Samuel and St. Mark. As you can see, I'm sitting in a different chair because Lily beat me to. I went into to get a cup of coffee, and by the time I came back, Lily commandeered my red chair, and she won't move. She's very selfish. There's nothing I can do with her. Anyway, so I'm sitting in my rocker, where probably I belong anyway. Anyway, the reading today again is what I from Samuel is what I referred to yesterday. Okay, about the Absalom. Absalom is accidentally killed, and David goes into profound grief, and so does his whole army. He models forgiveness. See, he makes whole, even if he can't do anything with Absalom's dead, but he can heal at least himself. Okay? He forgives from within. Even if he can't, see my student question yesterday, even if he can't heal the other through love, as in the way he did with Saul. But he can't do it with Absalom. Absalom's hanging from a tree with a spear in him. He's finished. But David's not finished. David can still forgive from his heart. One of the students said, it was a wonderful class. God, these kids are phenomenal. I really mean it. God, they're good. Not only smart, they're good and honest. One kid was really feisty. He's going to be the heart and soul of the class. But he said, I could never forgive this. I could never forgive that, whatever it was that he referred to him. David does, in a sense, he forgives Absalom. See? He forgives him. He even essentially forgives the guy cursing him. See? And in so doing, he frees himself. See, redemption through forgiveness not only forgives the one who's done the offending, it heals the wounds from within. If you live with vindictiveness, if you seek justice and you want retribution, in the end, you starve yourself out. You end up living with a hole in yourself because it reverts back to you. See, that's the trouble. You hate long enough, or you seek vengeance long enough, in the end, you kill your own heart. You kill your own heart. And the reason is there is no justice. It's vain. It's the pursuit of an ultimate vanity. There is very, very little justice in life, but there can be forgiveness and wholeness, so long as there is, at least on the part of the offender, some degree of repentance. But even if there's not, one can heal from within, not justifying violence or evil done against you at all, or permitting it. An abused wife should never forgive her husband in the sense of allowing him to abuse her. That's not it. But it is also, there is a capacity to seek to heal. It's an attitude of soul to seek to heal, at least to some extent that's possible, without becoming complicit in the crime. You can never, ever forgive in a manner that allows the evil to continue. Saul stops what he's doing. Absalom doesn't, but he's killed in the process. The healing with regard to Absalom comes from David himself. He heals his own heart by grieving for over the death of his son, you see. In a sense, he brings peace to himself, not because justice is served, but because he forgives through the pain of his loss. He forgives. He forgives Absalom. And how do you know that? Because he grieves over him. Absalom, Absalom, my son, Absalom, you see? See, better that I should die than you. Great line, you see? See? But at the same time, he fought Absalom. And in the sense, he's not going to allow Absalom to destroy himself. Right? Sometimes the most loving word in the English language is the word no, no more, no more. You can do harm no more. I've seen that in people who reach a point they must divorce because it's the only way they can stop the harm, the abuse. See? Sometimes you have to say no and walk away, but it's not a walking away out of vengeance. But in some senses, it's the deep of love of oneself. You can never allow yourself to be abused. And also love of the other person to prevent them from continuing to abuse you and therefore abuse themselves. The abuser destroys two persons, the person abused, but the self of the abuser. There's two victims. The abused and the abuser is victim to him or herself. The healing has to come from within. That's the beauty of David, I think. His beautiful model of forgiveness, model of love. He doesn't encourage the villain. He doesn't do that. He actually resists it. He fought Saul and he fought Absalom. But when the moment of vindictiveness comes, he doesn't. He heals. He seeks to heal. He heals the relationship with Saul. And he would have with Absalom if given the chance. But Absalom, by accident, dies. Gets caught in his hair and he's run through. Okay, he's killed by a soldier, an officer of David, doing what his duty told him to do. And what does David do? He grieves. He grieves. There's something magnificent about David. No wonder he's such a star in the biblical, in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. Such a magnificent human being. Flawed, sure. Tempestuous, yes. Beautiful, yes. He's so humanly beautiful. I mean that. I love David because he embodies the very essence of what it is to be a redemptive human being. A redemptive human being. He seeks only to do what's right, and when he confronts what's evil, he fights the evil, but he doesn't succumb to it, and he doesn't fight it vindictively, but in a manner that would make whole what is broken. It's a story in the gospel when Christ heals. He always heals to make whole. In today's gospel in St. Mark, it's the woman with a hemorrhage. Well, she's separated because she's bleeding. By Judaic law, by Mosaic law, she can't be a member of the community. So she tries only to touch Christ, and in touching him, she's made whole. See? And then there's the rising of Jairus' daughter. That's a resurrection theme, by the way. The ultimate alienation is death. And Christ comes and he raises her up. He used the very language of the resurrection. Raises her up. See? Christ takes David far, far beyond David ever could do. He brings us from death to life. See, he heals the ultimate separation, which is death, alienation and death. We're alienated from our very selves and death itself, through death. And Christ brings us back to life together, not only in our own self, but remember, Christ restores Jairus' daughter. He restores her to her family. And get her something to eat. He says, he's thinking about her. Give her, come on, she's probably hungry. Give her something to eat. You see? I wonder if Jesus is part Italian. I don't know. Well, we won't go into that. You see? There's something magnificent. He brings her back to her family. Doesn't just raise her from the dead, he restores her to her family. When you think of the resurrection, it's the restoration of our lives to our family in paradise. All those we have loved and been loved by. Our community, our narrative community. Our parents, our relatives, our friends, those with whom we have walked this life. When I think of paradise, when I think of the hope of the next life, it is the hope that we are together, though we are together again, now without tears and failure and death itself. When all is disappeared, all is removed that keeps us apart, that we have a perfect community at the dinner table. I think of my father's dinners at Christmas, the whole family together, not allowed to argue with each other, but to enjoy the festivity of the dinner and Uncle Harry singing. You had to be there. You want to, when I think of paradise, the church in paradise, I think of my father's dinner, my parents' dinner. My grandmother and her two sisters-in-laws, they sat together, the matriarchs of the family. My father at the head of the table, my mother next to him, and his sons and their family. See, all cousins. Nobody missed that dinner. Nobody missed that dinner. They wanted to sit at that table. It's a symbol of paradise. Christ restores the daughter of Jairus to the family, to the dinner table of the family. See? That's a beautiful image. It takes David far beyond what David did. See? Far beyond. I'm grateful to be a Christian because I can hope that all separation, all pain, all darkness and death are dissolved. And what is left is the dinner table, the family dinner. Just what you get in the text today in St. Mark, an eternal family dinner with all with whom we have lived and loved, all who are the people of our story, our narrative.